And welcome back to Community IQ. To engage and to encourage building up versus tearing down voices of our community, Community IQ. We're here with our very special guest tonight, Dr. Braden Veller, to talk about the things that are real, going on right now that we all see and hear, and we need comfort, and we need it with the truth. We need it of the things of God. We're not here by happenstance. There absolutely is a purpose, and we're here to talk about right now. Dr. Braden Veller, how are you this evening?
Very fine. Nice to be with you, especially with so many important topics that are on the minds of so many people. We live in most challenging times, as you certainly well are aware.
I absolutely agree. In fact, so many people have been talking about the word prophecy. They all want to know where this is all going. We all want to know what is happening next. I mean, there's a lot of frightening things out there. What do you make of it all?
Well, the Bible is a now book. It has a lot to say about the events that we see around us. And at a time when society as a whole does not really want to retain God and its knowledge or to look to God to remedy the problems we see with specific answers, it's very, very sobering to think that we live in a world without God, with massive weapons of mass destruction that are at the disposal of different people that are unpredictable, people in some cases that are fanatics. So when individuals are concerned about the future, I share that concern. I share the anxiety, or understand that anyway. But I find great encouragement in Proverbs 3, where it talks about trusting in God first, and you don't have to worry about the things that will happen. It says your sleep will be sweet. We live in a world where everybody's grabbing pills for this ailment and this other ailment. They're concerned about anxiety and depression, and the prescriptions that have been written for those different drugs have maybe they've helped some people, but we have a society increasingly that's looking to them. And frankly, that's not going to be enough. There are any number of motivators out there that talk about the ways to success, and they have some important points, but it all stops short of an allegiance to God. What does God think? What could God do to help inspire people to attain happiness in a time of trouble? This is definitely a time of trouble. Runaway inflation, runaway crime in many of our large cities, the global retreat of Uncle Sam in the world, and the trucker strikes and other strikes that could interrupt delivery of different vital products around the world, around the country. That's enough to scare most people because they don't have an answer. The politicians don't have a good strategy that people can feel good about. We have a State of the Union address going on, and there are the critics all lined up ahead of time. Before they hear what's going on, they've got their objections raised. And so we have a house very much divided. So yes, I think that we can acknowledge these frustrations, and yet in the middle of that, if people make room for God in their lives, they could make this the best year of their lives. That sounds like a pipe dream. I understand that. But really, when you look at it, when you understand what God promises, a lot of people say, well, I could get excited about God if I knew that he existed. One of the most amazing examples that I can think of is a man that lived over a century ago. His name was George Mueller. And when he grew up in Germany, he lived on the wild side of life. And this went on through his young adulthood. And finally, one day, to make a long story short, he came to realize that the missing dimension in his life was God. And at the same time, he came to understand that in the country of Great Britain, where he had moved to, he had decided by looking at all of the different suffering going on with children, that he was going to build orphanages, get the children off of the streets, give them a future, give them food, give them hope. And he did that and dedicated his life. Now, the reason I mention that, there's so many reasons to talk about in a person of that caliber. But he not only changed his life around, he made a difference for others. And one of the fascinating things is that he started to write a diary of all of the times that God answered his prayers. And he had built up a number of orphanages and became well known, became an internationally renowned speaker. And so all of this happened because he kept trying to invest in the people around him. His community was in abysmal shape, and he had this kind of community IQ to be able to turn lemons into lemonade, to take a disastrous situation such as in the 1850s and the Industrial Revolutionary Great Britain, and bring it to life, bring it to the point where there would be hope for the next generation. The youngest generation was very much at risk, but the beautiful thing was he kept diaries of all of his prayers, and he had accumulated 5,000 that were answered on the same day that he prayed. And then he had another 25,000 where he was praying about something, and maybe not that day, but a week later, a year later, or whatever, it came to fruition. So here's a person that wanted to improve his community, and he wanted to get rid of his past. And by doing that, he changed, he became committed, he became excited about the future, he had a vision for the future, he trusted in God, he never asked the public for a single dime, a penny, nothing. He trusted in his Creator, and his Creator came through for him. And the people were better off. The standard of living for those hapless orphans that were on the street was greatly magnified. That's what can happen when you have even one person make a difference. So if you have a community of people that want to enhance the life of those around, that want to encourage other people that are have-nots, and perhaps they have not a family, they have not a dad, they have not the means to be able to earn a productive living in this society. There are answers for that. The Bible has answers for that. And then and the community can rise to the occasion and make a difference. It can be the best year for the community, the best year for you, the best year for your family. It's all in what we do, because we sow what we reap. And when we sow good things, eventually we have a return for that. And that's what we're all looking for, a better return for the effort that we expend on the things that we all need.
And I'd say with that, you got short-term investment. Sometimes you invest, you see immediate results. Sometimes long-term. Mm-hmm. And the longer you invest, literally, the greater the results.
The greater the result. And that happens because in the period, in the interim period, you might say, well, why doesn't God make everything perfect just right away? Because he wants to make everything perfect maybe eventually, and along the way redeem us. Because when we look at us as contributors or potential contributors to a better society, we have to realize that we have had our shortcomings, our addictions perhaps, our intolerance to other people or ideas. And so it is that along the way, there's something more important than having a beautiful result. It is developing people along the way. I think of a scripture in Revelation 3 and verse 21 that talks about the fact that he that overcomes, I will grant with me to sit on my throne. Revelation 2:26 also ties into that. When you see what God has actually said and what he's promised, you realize he knows best. He created human beings. And so it is, he's patient, and we have to appreciate that. And sometimes we need to learn to be in congruence with his timetable. He has a plan that he has not yet implemented, but he can with individuals, with the entire world. That comes later. But what about tomorrow? What about tonight? What about this week? What can we do to become more productive human beings where we are just thrilled to be alive and thrilled for the potential that we can have and share with each other? If you're serious about studying this out, you'll find that the people that are the happiest are the ones that know how to give. Acts 20, verse 35, is more blessed to give than to receive. Easy to say. This society thinks the opposite. This society says, I'll grab this community and that community and the Ukraine, and I'll take, Odessa, and I'll take back the former Soviet Union. That's the mindset of some people. And it's not just Russia. You could go to China, Pakistan, Iraq, Israel. When people are on the getaway of life, there is not enough natural resources and territory and gold and silver for everybody. It only happens when we are learning to give. That may sound hokey, but show me a better way, a way that is not bogged down in greed and hatred and contempt. We've been doing that for 6,000 years. There's got to be a better way, and fortunately there is.
I absolutely agree. In fact, a lot of people, back to the comment that you were talking about, we all come to a point where we're like, God, why don't you intervene now?
Yep.
And you just explained, God has the world view, the complete view, beginning all the way to the end, with billions and billions of people involved for their best interests. And I think if God intervened now, there would always be the excuse. Mm-hmm. In other words, God allows all the roads to go to a complete finite completion. I want to re-say that. God allows all the roads to come to a complete end. Mm-hmm. And then I do believe he's going to open up all of our eyes, and we're all going to see, we all come to the same conclusion, no matter what generation, and that is, without God, can we truly have peace and happiness? We all come to the conclusion that we need God in everything. If God intervened right now, I'm sure the excuse for today would be, if you gave us more time, we could work this out with technology.
Yeah.
And certainly that's a big thing right now. Oh, they're fixing to say that we can solve this, this, and this, all in the name of technology and AI. But it will be the same result, because that is what we have with just history. Everything repeating itself.
The ironic thing with history is that as man advances with technology, he also advances with the weapons of mass destruction. And so it's kind of a wash. It's an unsavory balance we find ourselves. And so we need more than just that. We need more than technology. And I can remember a political cartoon where these cavemen were fighting each other, and there was several other cave people that had placard signs that were protesting the fighting. And the fighting was these different tribes throwing spears at each other. And mud, big clay balls of mud at each other, dried mud. And one of them with their sign says, "What's next? Spears?" And the point being that, and then after that, it's this other weapon. And after that, it's nuclear energy and nuclear warfare. This is what God has said. Except those days be shortened, no flesh shall be saved alive. That's out of Matthew 24. It doesn't have to be that way for individuals, though. God is willing, and he is powerful enough that he can protect and help people. If we make him a part of our lives, then we start to reflect his mind, and that helps others around us. As it says in Proverbs, he that waters others waters himself. If we take care of others around us, we are building a better community. We're bonding as families. We're restoring the family unit. We're restoring purpose to life. God, who is the master planner of all of humanity, knows what works. And he's able to bless his people, and he's able to take on those that want to discover him and get on his wavelength and make life work. So there's everything to gain and a lot to lose if we don't try to do what we can for ourselves and for our loved ones.
We started off talking about prophecy. Mm-hmm. You went ahead and hit a scripture that is absolutely a mile marker of right before Christ returns to the earth. Mm-hmm. He returns right before mankind completely annihilates itself.
Yeah.
And we know that's possible with nuclear weapons. So what an indicator. And I just wanted to say prophecy, not necessary for salvation,
True.
but does it provide encouragement? Absolutely. Do we need all the encouragement possible? Absolutely, especially in the times that we're living in. So be encouraged. Be encouraged. We're going to go over mile markers as we tackle this topic, and it's going to be more than just one broadcasting. We're going to go into where we are in that time history. And again, nobody knows the day or the hour when this great tribulation takes place right before Christ returns to this earth. We're not here to establish any dates. This is just to help encourage and strengthen the minds that God's word is absolutely true, and how thousands of years ago he has recorded things that absolutely will take place.
I remember when I was a child, and this is when as a child, I was learning that we were in the nuclear age, and I was very troubled by that. Children shouldn't have to worry about things such as this. But I can remember we would practice not a fire drill, but a nuclear drill. If we were under nuclear attack, then we as kids were to stand in a row of children and be marched out to the school buses. I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina at the time, and it was explained to us that if this was for real, that we would be in these buses and go 20 miles south to Rock Hill, South Carolina, to a place of safety, some kind of an underground bunker, I guess. And that was our salvation. And I'm thinking, well, if this happened, where would my parents be? And where would these friends, other friends that I know be? And what would happen to us? That's not something that children should have to be burdened down with. But as I got older and understood, they didn't do those defensive drills, civil defense anymore, because the nuclear weapons would overcome and totally destroy mankind's efforts to create protection. That's not widely known even now. People don't talk about it. But there was a dearth of hope, and we never want to take hope away from people. And again, even this side of the return of Christ, people can turn their lives around with God's help. He wants that. He wants strong and healthy communities. There have been success stories where people have been able to do that in different places. So instead of saying all is in despair, I'd better reach for my anxiety drug or whatever, reach for the Bible. Reach for promises that guarantee happiness, that show things. And if this sounds, again, hokey, prove all things. If you try to build a better community and it doesn't work, and people run away and laugh and scoff, well, then you know that we're just hot air here. But if there are some tangible results, and you prove it for yourself, and you see a change in yourself, and you see a purpose, and you see how other people can improve, and you are able to bring sunshine and no negativity to other people, it changes the climate. And it gives the potential to have the best year yet.
Absolutely. Say it all the time because it's absolutely the truth. How do you know that the Bible is true or anything is true? You must test it yourself.
I will say this. It's not my intent to put anybody down. If people have never come to these conclusions or even taken the time to study it out, it doesn't mean they're bad people. Not at all. They're good people that have never considered these things. Just as there was a time in my life I was busy with other things. I knew God existed, at least I thought he did, hoped he did, and didn't give it any thought beyond that. And I thought that mankind was going to aspire to solve his own problems. I can tell you the problems are far more complicated now than they were when I was in that nuclear evacuation practice back once upon a time. We have to give serious thought to the fact that there's something better out there. I can remember one weightlifter. He held the world's record for the most weight hoisted on one leg was 550 pounds, but he was working and coaching with a number of different famous athletes. And one day, somebody came out of the blue and came to him and said, Harry, quote, I want what you have. I want what you have. And he couldn't place it, but he just sensed it. And it was that this person, yes, he believed in physical practice, but he also believed in the power of God. And that was what he felt ran his life. And it's never too late to change. Never too late. We have eternity in front of us.
And I wanted to put in some humility myself, because these conclusions I didn't have myself. I can say absolutely, when God opened my mind and provided good mentorship and guidance, and step by step, here a little, there a little, precept upon precept, is how I've come to the, considering it all, the vastness of knowledge that I think it takes forever for us to come to really know who we are and each other, and of course God, a little bit of knowledge that absolutely, based upon God's truth, that has helped me out. I remember when God opened my mind and to his truth, I remember going to my parents, and I was so excited, and the very first thing I said is, God calls the weak and the base to confound the mighty. I'm the weak and the base. And it doesn't mean lacking in intelligence or talent and skill. No, it means morally deficient. It means a weak character. Because as we'll get into some deeper items, without a doubt, our heart, we must see in ourselves, our mind of itself is desperate and incurably sick, and it's desperately wicked. That means the things of God and the good things is not per se natural. And it absolutely is divine intervention and a miracle that you want to seek good and do good. And we're looking forward to that miracle with you, because if it can happen to me, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a sneak peek, and I hope that you have found this valuable time encouraging and piquing an interest in what we're going to be getting into next in the next podcast. The whole plan for mankind, God spells it out in his holy days from beginning to end. And what else is incredible? All key events happen on these holy days. It truly is incredible, and I hope you find it the same. Thank you for listening to Community IQ. Make it the best. We'll be talking soon.